I don't call it outsourcing either.
Okay.
And the reason why is because these are people who work full-time direct for my company. They just happen to be in another country.
Mm.
So when I think of outsourcing, I think somebody with a headset in India or the Philippines
Yep.
with a call center and they're chasing down my accounts receivable
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I don't know who they are
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
they're just this box. When I think of global talent, which is the
Hmm.
term that I use, when I think of global talent, I think of, oh, that's Beth. She could be in Fort Lauderdale, Buenos Aires, or Manila. She's just Beth. She works for our company. She works directly.
Welcome to the Lead In Podcast, where we dive deep into genuine stories of leaders who've seized control of their journey. This podcast is brought to you by LeadHub, your growth partner for the trades. And now, let me kick it over to our guy, Austin Lenny.
Guys, welcome to the Lead In Podcast. Don't let the mustache fool you. This guy's dangerous. John, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. You appealed to my ego via my mustache right away, so this will be a good pod.
Dude, look, first we got to get something out of the way, okay? There is no cooler guy in the entire world than Tom Selleck in a red top-down Corvette. I don't care about the show.
In a Hawaiian shirt, in above-the-knee shorts,
Yes.
with 3 buttons undone and a Detroit Tigers hat on. That was peak.
Dude,
And
do you remember the
everything else
movie when
goes
he
down.
was the American baseball player that went to Japan?
You
It was
mean
a
Mr. Baseball, one of the
dude, it
best
was a
movies?
great. I've
Do I
watched
know
this.
Mr. Baseball
I've watched this so many times. Such a good movie.
with his chest hair? He's just the dude. Just is just peak. He's everything I aspire to be.
Dude, I'm telling you right now, we have lost our style in America.
You know, there's corners that I think are promising, and I'm just gonna bang the Tom Selleck drum just because I consider him my spirit animal. I raised 7 grand and or six or 7 grand in November this year off Twitter for like men's prostate and testicular cancer and stuff like that. And it was just like, dude, people wanna find that ethos again, and I'm happy to be a small voice in that movement.
Okay, so you have a very interesting track record. You have a very interesting kind of philosophy overall, and we're going to focus on kind of one thing, especially it's perfect timing because you just kind of launched it too. So I'm going to lay a little context and then let you kind of do your
Sure.
thing. Um, and I don't mean to like sound like I don't mean to sound dramatic, but like I have worked with teams of whatever you want to call them, VA outsource workers. And the one that I worked with, she had a double degree. She was a lawyer and an accountant, had an MBA. She could work circles around 10 people I know. And, we paid her, $10 an hour or $12 an hour, right? And she was amazing. She ran the team. And so when you stack up, right, and you look at even me, I have 45 employees, right? And health insurance, 401k, all it's not just the hour per hour, it's a lot of money. And then not to mention we're a 24-hour company, which is a whole nother can of worms after hours. And so this outsource work, this VAs, whatever you want to call it, is becoming more popular. Even the bigger companies are getting on board. You know, I think the first thing that I'd like to get off, and you probably feel this way, calling them VAs, I don't like that term. I really don't. Like, do you have a different classification that you use in your company?
I think there are 2 terms that I don't like, actually. And then I'll give you the one that I do like. So I definitely don't like the VA thing because you just said I had somebody who had a lawyer and an MBA, and you still called them your VA.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Are they really an assistant? No.
No.
So that's the first thing. The second thing I say is I don't call it outsourcing either.
Okay.
And the reason why is because these are people who work full-time direct for my company. They just happen to be in another country.
Mm.
So when I think of outsourcing, I think somebody with a headset in India or the Philippines
Yep.
with a call center and they're chasing down my accounts receivable
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I don't know who they are
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
they're just this box. When I think of global talent, which is the
Hmm.
term that I use, when I think of global talent, I think of, oh, that's Beth. She could be in Fort Lauderdale, Buenos Aires, or Manila. She's just Beth. She works for our company. She works directly. That's Beth. I'm going to come visit her when I'm in town. Like, it's not like this throw garbage over the wall. They're just members of my team just like any remote team member, whether they're American or not American.
And what and you see the arguments out there, you see people talking about it, and you just mentioned two words that you hate. But more importantly, what are business owners getting wrong if they're even engaging or looking into engage into this?
Yeah, and I wouldn't hate them. What I would say is that when you label them like that, it restricts what it restricts how you can think about it. Right? When you say VA or you say outsourcing, you're like, oh, I'm worried about I'm a high performance company. We can't have these low quality people. And you're like, why are you saying they're low quality? They're better than the people I get in California for 10 times as much money.
Mm.
And so it's not that I hate it. I just think it's like saying I only listen to the trombone. It's like you're just limiting yourself. Don't call all musical instruments trombones. So that's the first thing. The second thing in terms of what I think people get wrong is they think it's harder than it is to get started.
Mm-hmm.
There are all sorts of functions within your company, very common one, depending on the industry, that is already being done. It's usually being done poorly, is chasing down accounts receivable. That's a very easy one. You can get somebody full-time with great English, works your hours, and all they do is shrink your working capital. And the day they start, magically your AR, because it's being worked, instead of it just being some side duty of your bookkeeper, your overworked comptroller, or whatever it is, magically your aged receivables just shrink down. And right there, you're now leveraging global talent. And you build familiarity, you build comfort, and next thing you know, you're building whole companies like that, which is what I do now.
I had a guy that I knew back in my real estate days, who lived half the year in Medellin and half the year in New York or Florida. He played golf every day of the week. He had three businesses. He had um, seven global talent people, and he would send them assignments before he would go to bed. And then he would wake up and they were all done. And then he would work for like 4 hours and then he would go play golf. And it was my first, like, I was like, how do you do that? And he's like, dude, you just they understand you get comfortable, et cetera. And so, you know, really what you're saying is like the work is there, the opportunity to expand, the company is there. It sounds like it comes down to a mindset of a business owner, but more importantly, the mindset of an entire economy. When, if I'm being honest, and I'll be the one to say it, frankly, a lot of the workers in America are spoiled rotten, and they don't. I could do without the attitude, right? Of the you keep giving raises and it's never enough, and it's always complaining, and what I'm looking for is more of an attitude of let's win together, let's grow together, let's continue to be enjoy what we do, and I find whether it be Mexico or India or wherever I've used in the Philippines, they're very excited to learn. But what I liked about it the most is they were also excited to grow as people too. And they were asking me, "Oh, you're a mindset coach. Can you recommend some books?" And I would put together a book list for them. Like, I really loved that aspect of it. They were like eager to grow.
I think there's a lot there. The first thing I'd say is I am as patriotic as they come. I served my country, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I love America deep in my bones. I will never be anywhere else ever. I am also believe that capitalism and the market has done more for the world than any single thing, like
Mm-hmm.
since the beginning of
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
And much like, in 1975, a big screen TV cost $10,000 because
Mm-hmm.
manufacturing wasn't globalized. And it
Mm-hmm.
took the globalization of manufacturing in the 1980s to now I've got a flat screen. It cost me $200, Costco.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In much the same way, the globalization of white collar work is going to create so much economic benefit. It's going to force people to rejigger their careers. You're not going to be a stay-at-home crappy graphic designer working remotely because you're competing with the guy somewhere else. You're going to have to rejigger your skill sets, just like people with horses and buggies when the automobile came said, well, my job's going to be affected. And you're going to say, yeah, but the amount of economic good created through the globalization of white collar work is going to be huge. And so people driving results with global talent is an inevitability of the market system, which is a good thing. It's an inevitability and it's a good thing. Just like manufacturing, would you only buy clothes manufactured within 20 minutes of your house? No. So then why are you doing your bookkeeping in QuickBooks Online just with the bookkeeper who's down the street?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
We have the internet. We're on Zoom.
Yeah. Dude, this is the argument with my COO, who's now CEO, and I respect, how he's built businesses before, but I'm like, dude, at some point, we're gonna need to search for talent, no matter where the talent comes from. But we as a company, and I know this, we have to, and you're very big on this, we have to build out the proper processes and systems in order to deserve the people coming into my. I think that's a big issue too, is as a business owner, you don't even have the playbook to how to onboard, how to train, how to walk them through the steps, and then now you're handing somebody a loose system that you haven't even spent time on.
What I would argue is I get A+ outputs from average people, and a lot of people get below average outputs with above average people. And the reason being is I think about building companies, not collections of people.
Okay.
And so when you ask grandma how to make Thanksgiving, she says, I don't need a recipe. I just taste it. I don't need a little salt, whatever. But the minute you try to open a restaurant, if you don't have a recipe and grandma calls in sick, you burn the turkey. And so in much the same way, when you're thinking about building a company, if you're just throwing labor at it, well, when they ask for a raise and they're the only ones who know how to do something, guess who's going to have a margin hit? You. When you want to grow into a new territory, but you don't actually know how to perform the task at the company level, it's just Bob. Whose cell phone's going to ring all day? Yours. And so I think about creating companies, not collections of people that perform a company's outputs, right? And by doing that and by thinking it in that way, you inevitably see opportunities where you go, I have a $500 an hour lawyer putting his hours for 2 hours a day into a software. Why don't we have somebody who's not billing out at $400 an hour do that for him? And inevitably, when you start, instead of just saying we have lawyers and they take care of everything, that's like making a car with just one person who builds the whole thing. You can do it, but those people are hard to find. It's slow, it's expensive, quality is all over the place. The minute you build an assembly line, magically cars are cheaper. You can use lower skilled labor. You have a system to build cars, not a dude named Bob who knows how to build the car. And it's exactly the same with white collar work.
And I'm a business owner and I'm coming to you and I'm saying I need your services or I'm engaging you. What are you asking me right off the bat to make sure that I, more importantly, am a right fit for you and your people and not the other way around? Because I know you're just as picky as they are who they're hiring.
So the first thing I would say just off the bat after doing this 1,000 times is, have you ever hired any remote employees before? Because if they've never hired remote employees, most of the butt pain associated with hiring globally is actually hiring remote butt pain. Does that make sense? Meaning like they don't have Zoom. And it's like, well, dude, you would have had to do that if 100% of your employees come into your office every single day. That's just like hire some remote American first and figure out whether you're going to use Microsoft Teams first before you try to go global. So that's the first thing, because some old school accountant who does everything with paper and pencil, like I got better things to do. Like go remote first and then we'll go global. So step one is go remote. Most people at this point post-COVID have already done that, which is why global talent's exploding. And at that point, I would say, are you doing above $1 million, $2 million in revenue? Depends on the industry. But at that point, that's where the owner starts thinking about building a company, not saving money at every turn. And do I have sales volume? If you're only doing a couple $100,000 a year, you're not going to pay somebody to help you staff or what, like you have to be above a certain side to start thinking about like, how do I have people other than me run this business? When you're below $1 million a year, you should fucking do everything. Like you just you turn the wrench, you do the call, you fill out the contract. You don't have enough money to start delegating effectively, is what I would say. And so those would probably be the first two questions I'd ask is depends on the industry. Higher margin industry, you can get away with lower. A restaurant, you might have to be higher than that because the margin is so low. So
and I'm a company, and let's say we'll just use as is. I'm an HVAC company. I've got 25 employees. I'm doing 3.5 to 4 million a year. We're
Yep.
looking to move into a new market. What like who could I bring on to expand the reach and also allow me to grow more, rapidly with not crushing payroll?
Yep. So I'll make two comments on that. I've worked with lots of HVAC companies. I've worked with a ton of different companies. Typically, what I do is talk about where the magic is in your company, and then where the we just got to get the job done is.
Mm.
And in an HVAC company, for example, the people you have trouble with are the techs, right? Meaning like the wrench turners, right? But when you look at the way most companies are set up, they pay the person who answers their phone 45 grand a year. Then they pay the person who does their social media 4 grand a month. Then they have their accountant at $800 a month. And then they have all this non hard to get person labor that sits in their payroll. And so the first place to look is to say, why are we answering our phones in California where I can't get somebody sober for less than $25 an hour? Not to mention good, right? And so I would look at some of these kind of support functions, not the wrench turning HVAC guy who's your magician. I'm talking about posting on social media. You know you need to do it. You don't. Why? Because you already have one overworked marketing person. You don't have time, full-time marketer, right? You don't want to pay 5 grand to some firm who's going to like dump you off, right? So I look at all these kind of like, are you doing outbound sales calls? How are you doing payroll? Uh, CSRs, like phone inbound and outbound phone calls. Are you selling warranties after appointments by having text messages and phone calls to every appointment your text runs that don't close? Are you emailing every week about offers and discounts and promotions and just all this stuff that's not physically installing a water heater? If it could be done at home from COVID, it can be done globally. That's the way that I think about it.
And I was talking to Hoffman when I was
Yeah,
up at his
Chris.
office. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was talking to him and he was telling me that, for almost 9 years, they never used outside global talent, but the payroll was just getting crazy. And I think they said they had 27, 28 now.
Him and
And
I
for me, it just makes a lot of sense because there is I worry about what we're taking on right now. Like, so we had a real trouble with our CSR. We hired an outside firm. Then that was a real bad move. And then we had some people in house do it, and then that was bad. And so we brought it all in house. And my COO or my CEO is answering after hours now and switching it with somebody else. And that's not long term. But what we needed to do is we needed to understand the inflow, how much we were actually getting, what were the
Mm.
conversations, and now we can get to a point. But there is something to be said to like having that outsourced or global talent CSR to be able to, I don't know, not work 300 hours in your business.
And by the way, what you just said, you gave me backup to what I said the first time, which was the reason why I don't think about this as outsourcing is you're not going to risk having your phones answered by some company you don't know, who doesn't know your sales scripts, who doesn't freaking know how to get into your CRM.
Mm-hmm.
No, but you're willing to hire Beth from Argentina who speaks incredible English. By the way, they're bilingual in case you have Spanish customers.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
Beth works for you. She wakes up at 7 a.m. She answers the phone. She lives in your CRM. She comes to your all hands meetings. That's not outsourcing. That's Beth who works for you, who happens to be in
Yes,
another country, who, yes, is $900 a month full time.
there you go. That's amazing. And
So imagine what
we
you're
only have one qualification. We only actually have two. Okay. Can you speak, good English, proper
yep.
English? I don't even speak good English, so that beat me. Okay. Number two is, do you know Service Titan?
Yeah.
That's our engine. If you know Service Titan and you can motor around that, we're good to go.
So imagine what kind of growth you could unlock, and then I'm going to make a point about your techs. Imagine what kind of growth you could unlock if your CEO wasn't tied to his cell phone because he's the spillover call guy.
Well, mainly I want
Imagine,
his wife to not kill me. Yeah, that's
imagine how much longer he'd stick around. I do this with sales reps a lot, which
yeah.
is sales reps tend to do a lot of stuff that's not sales. And so I love flooding companies with sales support folks because
Yes,
sales guy
John,
just does sales.
John.
They crush. But if you ask them to do CRM, they quit, they suck, they ask for more money, they ask for a base, they ask for
You
a
know what I
draw.
want? can I tell you my dream scenario? This is what I
Yeah.
want. Okay. We're in a rural market. Sometimes I drive through it 30 to 45 minutes. Okay. I have two sales guys, but three. I want them to go to a job. They have their iPad. I want them to fill out everything for the estimate. And by the time they get back to the office, I want the estimate to be 85% done.
Yeah, dude, very doable. Like,
That,
you should be a customer, man. Like,
no, I know. And we will.
I
No
can tell you
brainer.
exactly how to set that up. That's not
Yes.
even that hard.
Well, it's so smart because then they could do instead of having to do 4 calls a day, they could do 6. But I don't even care about that. What I care about is, you know how you win a customer? You get him the damn estimate. That's how you win.
We have a guy in our home improvement business. He has somebody who, because we sell garage upgrade, or I don't own this company anymore, but our affiliates sell garage upgrades. While he's in the appointment, he takes measurements. He
Mhm.
sends them overseas while he's still at the home.
Yes.
He's sitting at the kitchen table with him, and the 3D design is done, and he presents it within 60 minutes.
It's insane. It's insane.
Why? Why is it insane though? Because
because
cell phone
I'm
service,
saying it's so good.
Slack.
I can't beat my competitors, the 2-man shops, because they're cheaper than me. But here's the
Yep.
problem. They can't install that furnace for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And so if you got a problem and you got no heat and it's 0 degrees outside and I can get you an estimate in an hour, you're gonna pull the trigger.
Now the other thing is you'll keep your techs longer because they want a wrench. They don't want to fill out a yellow copy, a pink copy, and a blue copy. They want to. But the second thing, and this is the huge one that the smart guys are doing. I'm also going to challenge something you said about big and small companies in a second.
Yeah.
If you notice, I like to disagree.
Yes, of course.
What the smartest companies, and this is kind of a subtle point, but if I've helped like veterinarians, I've helped really high level graphic designers, HVAC companies, plumbers, or mechanics. And you say, how can global talent help me? I'm just short on veterinarians. And I go, and they're like, can you help us recruit more veterinarians by posting on LinkedIn or posting on Indeed? I'm like, we can do that stuff, but would your problem be solved without raising your prices and without reducing your margin if you could pay your techs 20% more than the guy down the street? And you go, oh, we wouldn't have a tech problem, but I can't afford that. And I go, why are you paying your marketing person $49,000 a year? Pay that person $10,000, take half of that, give it to your tech. So you're not paying above market hourly or whatever the comp is for techs, put more money in their hands. Magically, you don't have a tech problem anymore. And your competitors are going, how the F are they doing that? Their prices are as good as ours. They're just as responsive. They must not be making any money. And you're like, no, I'm making more money now because instead of having your social media person sitting in California making God knows what, put the money in the hands of the guys who are hard to get. Somebody answering your phone is not hard to get. A freaking trained HVAC tech, hard to get. Put money in their hands, or veterinarians or mechanics. So you can I built all my companies where I think of them like ghost kitchens, where my guys who are live are overpaid and then everybody else is global. Magically, they're paying $42 an hour. Everybody else pays $33 an hour for an apprentice plumber. And so you can rework the way your payroll works and develop an advantage so you can steal all the trained techs from your competitors because they're not using global talent. So that's how I do it.
Perfect. What were you going to challenge me on?
Oh, historically, big companies have always used global talent. They use BPOs. They pay McKinsey $1 million and they set up call banks in the Philippines. What the new thing is smaller companies are using it. The new thing isn't the bigger companies. Bigger companies like Hoffman have always used it. They spend 500 grand, they whatever. The big thing is a company that does $3 million a year can have a full-time person working for them in Mexico in 3 days. That's unheard of as of 5 years ago.
I love it. So John, I say this story for you. This is the greatest.
Wait, we're being recorded.
I know. No, this isn't about me. This is the greatest story of all time. And if there's you might write a post about this because that's how much this is up your alley.
You write it, I'll retweet it.
So I'm in Dallas meeting these really successful guys, like probably the most successful guys I've ever met in my life. Okay. And they're sharing stories about just crazy things they've heard. This is a real story. I swear I'm not joking. Many years ago, AT&T is shopping their call center contract from their current person. So this guy finds out about it in India. and he calls them and they fly over to meet him. So in the morning, he gets up and he buys lunch for everybody in the office. And, he buys lunch for everybody. There's like 100 people in there and blah, 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 blah. So AT&T comes to the meeting, it meets him. And when he's walking through the office, everybody is raising their hand and saying, thank you for lunch and all that stuff like that. So they leave, they call back the next week, they give him the contract. The contract is worth $40 million. That was a shared workspace. He just bought lunch for everybody so they would raise their hand and say thank you. They thought he was the boss. And then he went and flipped that contract to a guy that had a call center, and they built out their company. The guy's worth $400 million.
See, I do shit like that all the time. You should write that and I'll retweet it. It's your story.
Dude, I will write it. It is, dude, it's
So
I
my
mean-
dad, so I was brought up on, so my dad was an entrepreneur before it was cool.
yeah.
Like he's been a career entrepreneur before it was like on social media, right? And he, when he was first getting started, he'd have my mom, who was his girlfriend, call during meetings with
Mhm.
people in his office so he looked busier. Like those are the stories I heard growing. Yeah, no, us, no, 50 units. Yeah, okay, thanks. And it was just my mom calling, right? And he's like that's what entrepreneurs who are scrappy as hell
Dude.
do. And I do that kind of crap all the time.
My old boss, one of my oldest bosses, he owned about 100 restaurants. He made his money in meat packing in Southeast Texas. He was a cowboy. He cared about me a lot. He told me a story. He said, look, when we got started in meat processing back in the day, it was me and my wife, and that was it. And we had a big factory. And he goes, I really had trouble, getting people to pay. She couldn't get anybody but to pay the clients. So she created a fake character called Marge, and she would just talk shit to everybody. And they would call and they go, hey, man, like, we really love doing business with you. But that Marge is a ball buster, dude. We can't. He never told them that was his wife for 30 years. It was a fake. I mean, it's just, you get it done the way that it needs to get done.
And that's where I think I very often push back very publicly against what I would call the social media version of what small business is, right? And I think there's a what's the right word? A glamorization of it in that, look, I wake up with a knife between my teeth and I get in it. And that's what I do. And I wake up tomorrow with a smile on my face and I do more. And one day, if I'm really lucky, I'm going to make a bunch of money, but who knows?
Yeah.
I like to wake up and get my put my boots on, put a knife between my teeth and go to it. And that's what 99% of small business owners do every day. They're not blogging.
Do you know who Daniel McCarthy is?
Is he the junk haul guy?
Yeah, junk haul guy, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I interviewed him yesterday on the podcast, and he was talking about his dad, and his dad had like 4 businesses that were wildly successful: mineral rights, concrete, all the things. And he goes, yeah, my dad ran a redneck holdco before it was a thing.
Redneck holdco is a great term.
It's I said, that's a shirt, that's a show, it's the whole thing. And I said, you know what, your dad, he goes,
you're right. It's a shirt, it's a hat, it's a brand. Did you buy the URL yet?
Dude, you got to. But listen, it's funny, right? Because that's my grandfather too, right? And that's other guys I played golf with that I met in Texas. And what's interesting, right? He said, seriously, this is a true story. He said his dad's number one need was to hunt. He loved to hunt. And so he would literally take clients out hunting, and that was just an excuse. So he worked hard to hunt. This is a true story. His dad has been out of business for years. He can call any of his dad's ex-clients, customers, and they'll do whatever. What do you need, Daniel? Whatever you need. And they haven't done business with his dad for 20 years. And I thought to myself this morning when I was walking, you know what he did? He didn't have an algorithm. He didn't have a marketing team. He didn't have a social media. He looked you in the eye, did what he said he was going to do, and left you better than he found you. That was it. That's a redneck holdco. We don't need algorithms. We don't need spreadsheets.
I saw this post a while back that I've thought about a lot, and it was having to do with like business buying or whatever. And it was like, and I realized I fall into the third category. You just have to be careful. But it was like, I met people who made a lot of money buying companies, and they've made a lot of money. And they know how to model, and they know spreadsheets, and they know debt rates, and they know everything, right? Every single thing you could think of. And they are some of the smartest, most impressive people you made. And they have made so much money.
Mhm.
But the absolute best guys I know buying businesses, they just only buy things where they physically can't lose money and they wait until they can. And I
100%.
was like, oh, that's what I like. I'm like, look, if I can't steal it, I ain't buying it. That's my thing. And I have bought a lot of stuff because if you're just patient, you have some dry
Mhm.
powder. I'm not looking, well, the debt coverage ratio, my ratios, I'm like, dude, yeah, I can total the columns in
Yeah.
Excel. Yeah, I can probably double up, and if I had to, I could sell the building. Yeah, no, it works. Yeah, that's how I do stuff, and it's just I think it's a it's a little bit of a different philosophy. It's like, and I went to a good school and all that, but that's just how I learned to do business from these kind of like old school entrepreneurs. They're just like he didn't think about debt
Mhm.
coverage ratios. He's like, I'll give you 100 grand and I'll pay you 10% of sales, and I get the deeds to the trucks. That's how he did deals.
Yeah.
That's how he bought the concrete company, right?
Totally. Totally.
So that's how I think about it.
I met a guy. We were looking at land out in Texas in the hill country, and I get out of the truck, and he gets out of his truck, and he looks at me. He goes, "Nah, you're too young." I said, "Shut the fuck up." I said, "You mind your business." And so we got to talking, and they had 500 homes. He had 3,000 acres, and he had been to 272 countries. And he was a master diver, and he was a master aerobatics pilot.
Cool.
And I said, you know, I said, you've been all of those places. I said, what was your thing? Like, what was the thing that you think about no matter what? And he said, dude, I'm telling you right now what it was. He's like, if you ever get an opportunity, do it. Never say no. He goes, I got in a hot air balloon as the sun rose in the Sahara, why the animals were migrating over the
Sure.
thing. He goes, dude. He goes, I still
Yeah.
think about that.
That's pretty cool.
And it's crazy because if you looked at the guy on paper,
Yeah.
you probably think he doesn't have a high school education.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And I just loved it because he's just people, man. He just gets it done. So if
Yeah.
people want to find out about your company, they want to track you down, how would they do that?
Yeah. So the company that I just launched is Sagan Passport, SAGAN passport.com. Think of it like the Costco for global talent. So it's a membership-based thing where we help you with a lot of stuff, including finding the people. And then if you just want to like read more from me, just Twitter at Matzner John is probably the easiest way. I have a newsletter, but the link's on there.
I love it. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, send it to a friend, and we'll see you next time. Folks, if you made it to the end of the episode, I'm sure you found some value with what you're listening to. If you could send this to a friend, rate us and review us, share us around. The more that you share us, the more that we can share content with you. Thank you all so much for your time and listening, and we'll see you next time.